Thank you for joining me for this episode of Nextbiteoflife.com podcast. My name is Kem. I'm your host. Today I have Allison, and Allison is in Japan. So, Allison, say hello to everyone.
Konnichiwa, everyone.
It's great. So, how long have you been in Japan? Let's start with that.
We actually moved to Japan in November, and so we've been here for going on 5-6 months now.
How do you like it?
Overall, I really love it. It's definitely different than any other place I've ever traveled to or lived, but it's a great place.
Tell us how you ended up in Japan.
My husband actually plays professional basketball, and this year he ended up playing with the team here in Japan. Last year he played in Italy, and then before that he was in the NBA, so we've kind of moved around quite a bit. It's been a bit of an adjustment, but it's also been really cool getting to experience different countries as newlyweds.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. So you've been there about 6 months now, and you've been in Italy. You were in Italy before that. Which part of Italy?
We were in Cantu, Italy, which is about 40 minutes outside of Milan. So the shopping was great.
I can just imagine. Allison's blog is called livelifewellblog.com. So make sure you check that out. And she has lots of pictures, and she has sections on living well, loving well, eating well. And how did you come up with the concept of the blog, actually? I'm curious.
Well, when I first thought of the blog, I was actually sitting in our living room in Italy. My husband was gone for a long road trip, and I was all alone by myself. And I actually was on Instagram. A lot of kind of younger people tend to follow me because I was on an episode of my Super Sweet 16 many years ago.
Oh, tell us, wait, before you go on, tell us about that. Tell us about that. Super Sweet 16.
Yes, almost 10 years ago, I was on Super Sweet 16. I was the girl from Atlanta who shut down Peachtree Street. Some flack because of that, but yeah.
So you've been, making waves since you were 16.
I guess, as a 16-year-old, it really didn't seem like that big of a deal. And then now it definitely doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but I guess so. I guess I have been kind of making waves in the media for a few years now.
That's great. So then you had the idea and you thought, let me go with this?
Yeah, well, I was on Instagram, and a young lady, requested to follow me, and in her bio it said future basketball wife, and it kind of baffled me that was her goal in life, to become the wife of a basketball player. I thought, she doesn't want to be a doctor, she doesn't want to be a lawyer, she doesn't even want to be a first lady, but she wants to be a basketball player's wife. And I just started writing, and I ended up writing a blog post titled, "So You Think You Want to Marry a Professional Athlete?" And it kind of shed light on what it's really like to be married to a basketball player, because everyone kind of only sees how it's portrayed on, VH1 and all the different reality shows. And so what initially inspired me was that I kind of wanted to speak to this young girl. And then after I wrote that first blog post and kind of shared it with some family and friends, they were like, "Oh, you're actually kind of good at this. If you have a voice, you should start a blog and share." And then I came up with the concept of Live Life Well. And I chose Live Life Well because actually as a 16-year-old and 17-year-old, I always said that my goals in life were to be well-dressed, well-educated, and well-traveled. And so that's where Live Life Well was born.
That's great. I know that I've actually read the article that you're talking about, and it was on Huffington Post recently, yes, too. And it's definitely a good read. You need to check out the blog post. Once again, she's on livelifewellblog.com. And that really should speak to a lot of young ladies, like you said. I mean, what kind of goal is that in life, to want to be a basketballer's wife only? I mean, what about you? I mean, she's trying to be what you are, but you're also college educated, and you're actually doing your master's right now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm almost done. I have 2 more classes, and I'm going to be finished with my master's degree in marriage and family counseling. So I'm really, really excited about that, and I'm actually in the process of kind of not transitioning my blog, because it's always going to be about a variety of things, but adding more lifestyle and marriage-related posts to tie into what I want to do with my master's degree.
That's fantastic. So to a lot of young people out there listening, don't just strive to be somebody else's arm candy. You want to be a woman of your own too. There's no reason why you can't be this day and age.
I created a t-shirt line to go on with my blog, and one of my t-shirts says "more than a wifey." And the whole point is that you shouldn't just be. It's fine to be a wife. I love being a wife, and I always knew that I wanted to be married, but I also always knew that I wanted to be more than just someone's wife. So I just created the t-shirt, and I also have a Facebook group.
Okay.
Facebook.com/groups/more-than-a-wifey, and it's for wives who are, business women, career women, bloggers, have their own brands, and do other things besides just being a wife. That's
fantastic. I mean, it sounds like you're empowering a lot of young ladies, and it's great.
I hope so.
So now that you've been in Japan for 6 months, how does it feel? Like describe everyday life for us.
Yeah, so my normal day in Japan, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of probably a little dull.
But there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people expect travelers and expats to be, running around and taking pictures 24 hours a day. But no, you're just living life, right?
Yeah, I'm just living normal life. I wake up, I make my cup of tea, drink it, do some blogging, do some schoolwork. My husband goes to practice. I ride my bike to the store. We don't have a car here in Japan, and it's really normal to ride bikes everywhere and take the subway system, which is amazing, by the way.
Wow.
It's the best train system I've ever experienced. So I ride my bike everywhere. People see me with my bike baskets loaded up with laundry detergent and meat for the week and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I ride my bike. I come home. I cook dinner. I blog some more. I build my empire and all that type of stuff. Game days are a little bit different here in Japan. I go to every single one of my husband's home games.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, it is one thing that I love about the lifestyle, is being able to support him as he follows his dream. So on game days, I get dressed up. We walk to the train station together. He might get stopped for autographs or pictures as we're kind of headed to the game with his teammates or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get to the game with him. I usually get there early before it starts. So I sit there and I do some studying or some more blogging as I wait for the game to start. And, I cheer him on. And after it, we always go to dinner. Our favorite restaurant here is actually a Korean barbecue spot, which is kind of weird since it's Japan.
I saw that on the blog. Oh, please tell me about the Korean barbecue. It sounds wonderful.
Amazing. It's the best beef that we've probably ever had anywhere. Wow. And, they bring out the raw meat and then you cook it on the grill on your own table, right in front of you. So you can cook it whatever temperature you want. And, the quality of beef is amazing. And we get, a whole plate of, sliced Wagyu beef for, probably $12 US.
Wow.
Really great price. So, yeah. And then on Mondays, that's the day that my husband has off. He doesn't have practice or games on Mondays. So Mondays are the day where we do a lot of exploring, a lot of touristy stuff. We're about 30 minutes from Tokyo, so we usually go into the city. We have a Mexican restaurant. I know you guys are thinking that she never eats Japanese food, but we go to a Mexican restaurant in Tokyo almost every Monday, do some shopping, go to the shrines and all the other cool things that Tokyo has to offer for tourists and visitors, and do all that stuff.
That's fantastic. But, that sounds like a wonderful life. I don't understand why you have to be rushing around. It sounds like you have your hands full with what you do. And it's great that you get to support him and go to every game. That's fantastic. I can just imagine, walking down the street with him and the rest of the team. There's no way you cannot get stopped.
You don't see many men, period, that are above 6 feet in Japan. And you definitely don't see many black men in Japan.
Exactly.
And so people definitely stare, and people will ask him for a picture, even since they don't even think they know who he is.
Yeah.
They figure he must be someone.
Yeah. What is the cost of living like in Japan?
I feel like food is cheaper in Japan. At your restaurants, like I said, the Korean barbecue restaurant we go to, you can definitely get quality food for cheaper. Now, your 5-star restaurants are going to be pretty steep, but like the grocery store, I feel like I always spend less than I would have at home for a week's worth of groceries. The thing that I will say adds up, at first I thought it was going to be cheaper, is I do feel like the train system gets to be more expensive than, just getting gas and having your own car back in America. We probably spend, I would say, close to probably for like each, probably like $80 each on the trains.
Wow, per month, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking at home we would probably fill up our gas tank twice in the month, maybe 3 times if we're doing a lot, and it would probably still come out a little bit cheaper, just to drive than it would be to take the trains. But I mean, we're not sitting in traffic, which is
true.
So.
That's really interesting. I know, like, I saw the prices for the trains, and I thought, oh, that's kind of like London prices there. It's kind of expensive, but it's great to hear that the food is cheaper, because I actually thought that the food would be way more expensive.
No, it's really, really not at all. I mean, we've been to a couple of, like I said, like 5-star restaurants, and those are going to be expensive no matter where in the world you are.
Exactly.
But just your average restaurant, I feel like it's either comparable or less than food in other places I've traveled.
See, that's so amazing when you hear, from expats, because that seems to be like the consensus is towards, like, no matter where you are, the food actually seems cheaper than the U.S.
Right, yeah. And, I mean, I can't really speak much on, like, the other areas of cost of living in terms of, like, housing and bills, because we are blessed in that the team takes care of all that stuff. But I've heard from other people that, live here and pay for their own stuff, that housing in terms of, like, rent and whatnot is cheaper, but bills in terms of, like, electricity and water are more expensive.
Oh, that's good to know. So do you think there's a huge expat group in Japan? Have you met a lot of other expats, or are they basically Japanese, or do you have to go into the city to actually see visitors?
There is actually like a huge expat community here, and it's because there's 2 military bases pretty close to Tokyo.
Ah.
So there's a ton of, like military families that are living in Japan, like tons. And any like little bit of research, like I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I just randomly was like, oh, I wonder if there's an AKA chapter in Tokyo. And I'm thinking, no way, like wishful thinking. There is. There's almost every Greek letter organization has a chapter here because of the military bases and the large number of Americans that they have living here. And then, in Tokyo, you see people from all over the world all the time. Just visitors, tourists. Like in Chiba, where I live, not so much. But if you go into the city, you definitely see there's a large community of people from everywhere.
Wow, that's great. I've been checking out some YouTube videos, and I saw like a lot of U.S. citizens like there speaking Japanese, and they've been living there for years. So I'm thinking, okay, so it must be a nice place to live. It must be kind of cheaper,
I was actually kind of taken aback by the number of people, specifically like single women, who have moved to Japan to teach or do other jobs. They just up and move by themselves, and I definitely commend them for being brave enough to move. No family, nothing. They're just like, you know what, I'm going to move to Japan and teach English. And they go over here and they start a whole new life.
I think one of the reasons is because it's so much, let's face it, it's so much safer, I think, than the U.S. And I think a lot of single women especially feel better there. Maybe that might have something. Yeah. Because, it's tough. I like the fact that nobody can carry a gun like they can in the U.S. And so, it kind of puts your mind at ease.
I always joke that, like, this is one of those places where if you dropped an $100 bill, or which would be a 10,000 yen bill on the ground, like, someone would chase you to give it back to you. They wouldn't just pick it up and put it in their pocket as they would in Europe, in America, basically anywhere else.
Exactly.
I've never felt unsafe here.
Wow, that's quite the endorsement. That's fantastic. I know a lot of people think about travel and they want to just chuck everything up and just sell it and go, because a lot of the blogs kind of push that, you want to just forget life in America and go somewhere else. But you need to sort of do your homework too. You just can't up and leave. You mentioned people are out there teaching English. So that's one avenue to like make money and live in another country. Not everybody is going to be fortunate enough to be able to play football or basketball or whatever sport that would bring you over there. But that's one avenue. So education is really important, whether you think of it or not.
Exactly. There are definitely options, but you have to do your research and you have to be qualified for these options. So definitely pursuing an education and figuring out, what you can do no matter where in the world you want to do it.
Exactly. I know I've been going on Facebook groups a lot, and I see they actually have, groups of like teachers abroad or kind of air hostesses or, they have their own little groups, but they pass on information as far as like, oh, there's an opening in Abu Dhabi, there's, this and that. But it all comes back to the point that you have to actually study. You can't say future Miss future Miss World.
You can't say future anything without putting the work into it. And I hope that you wouldn't put the work into being a basketball wife or whatever. But whatever your goal is, you definitely have to put in the necessary work.
That's great. So, how much longer do you have in Japan?
I'll be leaving next month. I actually have a huge cumulative exam to take for my master's program back in the States in May. And so I'm going to leave my husband a couple weeks early to go home and get that squared away, pass my exam, God willing. So that I can finish
You
my
will.
program.
So then, take us through, like, when he got his contract in Japan. How long did you know, and how quickly did you have to move?
Oh, yeah, this was actually an experience. He actually played training camp with the Atlanta Hawks. So he was with them from, like, September until the end of October. And so after that, we got the news that he actually wasn't going to be with them for the full season, and we started trying to figure out what our next move was. It was kind of like 2 weeks of like kind of radio silence. Like we were kind of getting a little nervous. Like, where are we going? Like, what's going on? We haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I want to think it was a Thursday afternoon. We got a call from his agent saying like, hey, there's a team in Japan that's really interested. Would you guys be interested in going to Japan? So, I look up the team. I look up the destination. My husband asks people who he knows who have played in different places, and we're like, yeah, that sounds cool. The next morning, we have the contract. We sign it, and our flight was booked for Monday morning. So,
Wow.
This was like 4 days.
And of course that helped because, you have your U.S. citizenship, so you could have at least gone for 90 days and then worry about everything else later, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly what we did. When we first arrived in Japan, they asked, how long are you guys going to be here? And we weren't even thinking. So we're like, probably like 8 months. And they were like, no, just 90 days. And then you leave.
Exactly.
Obviously, we didn't have our visas and our paperwork worked out at that point. But it was kind of funny because we were like, okay, yeah, sure.
It's like, oh no, maybe a year, maybe less, we're not sure. And they're like, no, you will have to leave the country after 90 days.
Yeah. We were like, oh yeah, that's right.
But of course it worked out because the team stepped in and I'm sure it took care of most of the stuff.
Exactly. I think we had our visas within like 2 weeks of when we got here, but we didn't even know our address, like where we would be living. We actually were in a hotel for the first week while they like prepared our apartment.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, that's a great story. So how long do you think you would be interested in traveling? I know you guys are just pretty much newlyweds. You've been married for about 1.5 years.
Yeah, we've been married for 1.5 years. Travel has always been a pretty big part of my life. Even when my husband was playing in the United States, I still traveled quite frequently with my mom. That's something that we love to do together, and it's also something that I love to do with my husband. And so I think that I can't necessarily say how long we will live abroad, just because with this lifestyle, you never know.
Yes.
We get a call from the NBA next week, and are we going to turn it down?
True. No.
But
No.
traveling will always be something that we do as a couple, and that I I do with my mom and my girlfriends. Like, I love seeing the world and experiencing different cultures. And so as long as I can, I will definitely be traveling as much as possible.
That's great. Thank you so much, Allison. It's been great talking to you, but let me leave you with this, or let me ask you one final question. What kind of advice would you give to like young girls nowadays that want to travel and want to do, basically the same thing that you're doing? You've already mentioned education is very important and they need to like get their ducks in a row as far as that is concerned. But is there something else that you would like to tell, anybody listening to this? Doesn't even have to be young people, old people, whoever. It doesn't have to do with anything.
I would say, even if you don't want to move abroad and you just want to, go for a trip, I think the first step is always planning that first trip. And that's really hard for a lot of people who haven't gotten out of their comfort zone a lot. I mean, it can be really scary to plan a trip to another state, let alone another country.
Definitely.
And so I think that it's so important to just say, you know what, like, I want to travel. I'm going to plan that first trip, whether it be to Jamaica, to London, wherever. Just, plan that first trip. There's so many different resources. I actually have a travel planning service for a part of my blog. There's also flight deals galore. I mean, there's so many different bloggers who share, flight deals, and there's Groupon. They share tips. I would just say, plan that first trip, plan the first one out of the country, whether it's near or far, and after that first trip, you'll be hooked, and it'll be easier, and you'll be way less nervous.
That's great, because, you're so right. Once you start traveling and you see other cultures, you see how maybe your preconceived notions can be, like, destroyed, because you're now seeing them as real people as opposed to, like, things that are reported on the news or what have you,
I mean, we have so many family members that had never gone out of the country before we moved abroad, and they were really concerned about the fact that we were living overseas. Like, I think they pictured it as something totally different. And when they came to visit, they were like, wow, like, more or less, this is just like home.
Exactly.
Like, people are still people.
Yeah, no matter where you are, Sometimes nicer people, sometimes not so nice, but they're just people,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think making the first step as far as travel, and like you said, it doesn't even have to be someplace far. You can stay within, the U.S. itself is like, it's so huge. There's so many places to go in the U.S. So you plan that first one, you dip your toes a little bit, and you see that, life traveling is not so bad.
Right. I mean, all it took for, like, I didn't go, well, I had been out of the country, like Canada and, like, places like that were close to the United States, but I didn't go, abroad, overseas until 2012. Me and my mom took our first trip. We went to London, we went to Paris, and we went to Florence. And that's all it took. After that, I had the travel bug, and I haven't been able to sit still since. So.
It's like, where to next? The list keeps growing longer, doesn't it?
Yes.
I see the more you travel, the more places there are to see.
Exactly.
Well, I hope to definitely meet you soon in Japan.
Yes, definitely.
And I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been wonderful talking to you. And I love the advice you have for everybody. And I hope people go and check out the website, livelifewellblog.com. That's livelifewellblog.com. As usual, there'll be pictures that go along with this podcast on nextbiteoflife.com. So make sure you check it out. And we would definitely welcome any comments as far as on iTunes, because the more ratings we have, it actually pushes it in front of people who are thinking of travel. So you can help us out that way. And once again, please check out Allison's website at livelifewellblog.com. Thank you again for visiting us today, Allison. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye.